tell me the difference in a Bible class and a Bible program.
Okay. A Bible class is what we call a one-off. Um, it's when you decide, "This year, we're gonna go over Psalms." I've been doing some work in Psalms, and I just feel like our kids need something about Psalms. Or you heard a sermon at church, and they spoke on Proverbs, and you're like, "Oh, man, my kids need Proverbs. We're gonna do Proverbs this year." And you just do Proverbs, and you just read through the Proverbs, you have some stuff you set up, and that's a Bible class. What happens the next year is something completely detached from that, and now you do something else. This happens a lot when as we all do as homeschoolers, we mix and match our textbooks. And this year, we really like, what this little group's doing, so we get their textbook on Bible. That's a nice Bible class. But this year, I think I'm gonna go with this other brand, because they have this and I like that, and so we're gonna do that. And so what the kids start detecting about the Bible is that it might feel a little random to them because the Bible seems to jump from thing to thing because we're jumping from thing to thing. Um, I I personally don't see any problem with mixing and matching, your textbooks, but when it comes to Bible, there needs to be a plan, a program. And by program, I mean when my kid starts off in kindergarten all the way to when they become a senior in high school, and this is my last year with my kid. What is the body of knowledge I want them to know? And not only do I try to figure out the body of knowledge I want them to know, what's the order? How do I scaffold all this together? And and then I'm starting to think in terms of a program. In a program, I have this body of knowledge that my kid is going to be able to have when they're finished. This is how we have a vision for our children. That this is the kind of person I want them to be. This is the kind of stuff I want them to know. This is why we homeschool. We homeschool because we get to have control over that. We're not handing them to a Christian school where, maybe they'll have a good vision for our kid, but I don't know. But we get that. And so a Bible program says, this is what I want from beginning to finish. This is what I want you to know. And this is the kind of knowledge you need to have before you leave my home.
Okay. Well, that's pretty powerful. And then I just keep going back to your illustration, Renton, about what you said about you've got this narrative here, but when you fill it in with strong content, that narrative is a whole lot harder to change.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming in some ways you're talking about secular college professors who would love to take our kids and change the narrative in their heads and their hearts
Yeah, that's right.
from one about Jesus to one about secular.
And
But
I'll say this too. There might be people listening and say, "Well, I'm not gonna send them to a secular college. I'm sending them to a Christian college," and they might have a Christian college in their brain. But let me tell you something. I've worked in Christian colleges as well, and I'll tell you this. There is no Christian college where you can just be guaranteed that everyone's gonna be on the same page through Christian orthodoxy or the traditional Christian views that we've had for thousands of years, that everyone's gonna be on that same page, that no one that they're gonna come across has been affected by Marxism or Christian Marxism or, a view of LGBTQ that, isn't normal for this school, but, I'm the cool teacher. There's just all these other factors you have to think about, even if you're sending them to a Christian school. So there's all these different things that you still have to think about as a homeschooler. Where am I sending my kid? Have Is the story that I have displayed for them from K through 12 not only something that has been coherent, but have they come to believe it? And that is the biggest part. To make that story so solid that no matter what they come across, they will reject any other story that tries to make coherence out of this world. They will say no if they've bought into it, if they really believe it. And that's what Bible class is meant to do. It's to solidify that story so that when they leave your home, that becomes the strongest post that holds them together.
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an eternal narrative that we're given. our children, and they'll leave our home. They're home for a short time. It seems like a really long time when you're homeschooling parent, and then all of a sudden, I realize I've got teenage grandkids that are getting ready to leave home, and you realize how fleeting this life is. And I can remember every night when Joe was putting the kids to bed, he would when he was turning off the light, he'd look at them and say, "Be there." And what that meant is, "You be there in heaven, and I'll be there waiting for you." And he would always tell them, "Be there, be there." And we want our kids to be there. We want them to have this story of Christ, and when I say story, I don't mean like fable story. I mean the life of Christ, the we want that embedded in who they are, and it directs their lives. And at the end of the day, like that old Baptist hymn says, when we cross Jordan's stormy banks, we're going to see our kids there. I mean, God works in generations and he works in families, and we want our families to be there by the generations.